you are probably torching money in these early stage tournament spots, so you should just max late reg instead.
Wow. That's aggressive. That's aggressive intro, Wesley.
Yeah,
I,
you all
I
are
kind
terrible at poker. No,
no,
we'll leave that part out.
I kind of like this. You kind of threw the hook in the water, got him by the cheek, and now they're like, all right, well, how am I torching money in these tournament spots? You
I
kind of
like
got. I
it.
mean, maybe I'm the one who actually got hooked because I'm the one torching money in these early tournament spots.
Maybe, but Max, I will say, I know you well, and I think you actually torch even more money in late stage tournament spots.
Well, let me ask you, when's the better time to torch the money, in the beginning or in the end of the tournament?
That's got to be early, right? You can just dust off 50 big blinds and still be in there.
And rebuy too, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, if
Huh.
you want.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I mean, thanks,
Actually,
Wes.
maybe it's a good thing when you can't rebuy.
Okay. Do we want to drop some, like some times that I've actually done that, or
No, that's fine.
okay, okay, yeah, we'll leave
Yeah.
those in the
About 48 times in the meetup game, but you play I feel like you play pretty well otherwise.
Thanks. Speaking of the meetup game, yeah, join us next Tuesday for the meetup game.
Next
I
Tuesday.
think
We
that is
well,
a great place to torch.
we actually do have a little announcement. I have to double check the time here. I think it's a half hour before, but there's also going to be a bounty brawl on Clubs Poker.
It's a tournament
Uh,
series.
yeah, there's a tournament series, and next Tuesday, it's gonna be a 33 sweeps coins entry. There's gonna be an event where you and I, Max, each have a bounty on our heads
Mm,
of
mm.
50 sweeps coins
I will say that
for
my bounty will probably be quite easy to obtain.
yes. Oh, mine too, and this is something that, Clubs Poker is putting on. So, the bounty isn't even coming out of our own pocket this time.
Should we
So they
cancel the meetup game and just call this the meetup game?
no, 'cause, I think we can do both.
Okay. All right. That sounds
Yeah.
good. Yeah. I'll
I think
just
in
another
fact, I
tournament for
think
me to
it'll
torch in. So
yeah, I think in fact this will get more people into both, right?
okay. I think so.
So
Yeah.
it's kinda perfect.
I'm looking forward to playing this club series, the bounty tournament series. It's nice to see their tournaments kind of making a comeback after the slow summer. Obviously, with WSOP and all that going on, a lot of the tournaments are coming back, and the cash games are flooding again. So we'll love to see that.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I just have to clarify the time of those, but I think they're a half hour apart in terms of start time, so I think that's great.
We'll actually have an episode releasing the day of that. So,
Mhm.
we can maybe just, for anyone who listens,
Clarify the
yeah, we'll
details, yeah.
clarify the details on our episode next Tuesday. So, yeah, keep an eye on for that. And so, for those who aren't aware, Wes and I have recently upped the ante, as we can call it, or however you want to say it. The blinds have raised, but we are now doing 2 episodes a week. Typically, for the first 2 years, we did every Thursday we would drop an episode. Now we're going to be dropping episodes Tuesdays and Thursdays, and what that means for you guys is more guests, more strategies, just more suited kings poker talk in general. So, and it's been a lot of fun. We've already dropped 2 Tuesday episodes the last 2 weeks. There's a lot of twos going on in that. But anyways, yeah. Hope you guys are enjoying the new content that we're pushing out. And yeah, we're going to be introducing a bunch of new formats and just kind of, testing the water, seeing what sticks, seeing what people enjoy, and then tailoring the content to make it more towards what you guys want to hear. So if you guys enjoy, you say you're listening to an episode and you enjoy what we're talking about, wherever you're listening to this, there should be a button that says "Send the Suited Kings a message." I will mention that we are
I
not.
thought you were gonna say $100,
Yeah,
sorry.
$100. Yeah, here he goes. Wes is just greedy, isn't he, guys? But
It was a
um,
bad day in the bankroll
if
challenge,
you,
you know it.
we'll talk about that for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, wherever you're listening to this podcast, there should be a button that says "Send the Suited Kings a message," something along that. I think it's on Spotify, Apple, Buzzsprout. You can do it on any of those platforms. But send us a message and let us know what you thought about the content. And again, we want to make content that you guys want to hear. So the feedback really helps a lot. Yeah, I think that's a good place to just kind of start moving on with the content today. Like Wes mentioned at the introduction of this episode, we're going to be talking about how you can potentially not torch in early cash games and everything that goes around that. How did rephrase what you said, Wes?
Okay, so, like, in a nicer way?
No, no, the way you said it. He doesn't
Okay.
remember.
Oh, no, I'm just saying you said rephrase it, right?
Oh, I sorry. Just say it again then.
Yeah. You're probably torching money in these early stage tournament spots,
Yeah.
and, that could apply to I'm sure this applies to some of us. In fact, probably everyone to an extent has made some of these mistakes, even if it's more of a thing of the past, but
I will say, let me add on to that, Wes. I think that yes, everybody, especially in the earlier stages of their poker careers, will say, have this happen or they do this to themselves. But I also see people who become um, complacent. Is that the right term? They just are someone who's say that you say you're well studied. They just get either bored or whatever, and they start making these mistakes again, just because of simple boredness or just lack of paying attention, etc. So this episode really will be tailored to all skill levels. So
yeah.
stay tuned for that. And before we get started, one last thing I wanted to touch: all episodes of the Suited Kings podcast are now on YouTube. They are still just in audio format, but if you guys use YouTube as your primary, content listening applications, for lack of a better term, yeah, you can listen to all of our episodes, all 90, whatever we have now at this point. You can listen to them all.
Yeah.
So
Wow, we'll have to do something big for number
yeah,
100. We have to plan that.
we have episode 100 coming up. I'm just gonna say right now, we're gonna have a big giveaway.
Are we?
Oh, like big. Big giveaway.
Oh,
You're
baby.
not gonna like what we're giving away, Wes, but I already have it in my head. I'll tell you off the
I
podcast, but it's gonna be big. Or as someone in the office the Oval Office would say, it's huge.
It's huge.
It's huge. That's a terrible impression. Anyways, let's get to the content.
You
Where to
know,
start us
I
off?
think I think we can all appreciate the attempt.
Thank you.
Um, yeah, so should we talk, max late regging first, or should we talk early stage first?
Let's talk early stage first. So, Wes mentioned late regging. I think if you want to avoid all the potential disasters that we're about to talk about, you can just late reg. That's always one way around it. But one thing, we've discussed this before, but I think it's important. There's a lot of benefits to late regging, but there's also a lot of benefits to registering on time. And today's content is going to be is going to be tailored around 100 to 200 big blind play. And that's
Mhm.
where a lot of mistakes are made because most people don't know how to play that deep. They get sticky. They don't three bet enough. There's a lot of different things that players do. But the benefit to registering early is that that's where all the fish are. Like if you want to go into a lake full of fish and it's a big fishing day, you want to get in there early to catch. The early bird gets the worm, right? So there's a lot of potential EV to be added to your stack. Um, but it's also more of a time sink. So there's negatives and positives to it. But let's get into some of the big stack strategy play here, Wes.
Alright. Just
That
doing the
was
sound
that a
effect.
manual like transitional?
Yeah.
Huge, huge.
Um, okay, so one thing that I've noticed, I think we've both noticed, is and you just alluded to it, there's a tendency for people to just be, like, very sticky in these early stages, right? So, like, there'll be,
A lot of
a
limping,
raise.
a
Yeah,
lot
there'll
of
be
calling.
a lot of limping, or there'll be, like, a 5x open and then a few calls, and someone will 3 bet to, like, 30 bigs, and then 3 people call, and it's like,
Hmm.
how did everyone's just kinda trying to look for an excuse to get all the chips in sometimes.
Yep.
Um, I think the first point to make is just, like, your chips j regardless of whether or not you're allowed to rebuy, that doesn't change what your strategy should be earlier in a tournament. And so if you find yourself doing either one of these things where, one, you are, playing way looser if you are able to rebuy, or you're playing way tighter if you're not able to rebuy, you're making a mistake doing one of those, right? One of them might be good play and one of them might be the mistake, right? But if your game is altering based on whether or not you're able to rebuy, that's gonna be a huge leak. Now, if you are adjusting your game because you think other people are doing that, that's good strategy, right?
Yep.
So, a lot of times in these tournaments, the best value early on will come from the ability to just accumulate a lot of chips when people are kind of splashing around.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's the benefit of registering early. We do have other episodes on, registration technique, or, not registration techniques, but registering and techniques that you can implement to try and, maximize your profits or the chips you make. This will
Mhm,
touch on some different topics though regarding that. So putting late reg aside, we regged on time. We're 100 to 200 big blinds deep. One thing that I see people, one of the biggest mistakes that I see, Wes, and this aligns with being sticky, um, is calling down three streets, losing a third of their stack in one hand early on in a tournament with second or top pair. Um,
yep,
I think there's a time and a place to call three streets. For example, it's more likely that you're gonna win the hand on three streets if it's a draw heavy board earlier on the run out, like on the flop, it's a draw and it runs out dry. So essentially none of the draws got there. These are hands where you can start kind of calling all the way down to the river with top pair. But for example, if the board's dry and you have, say, you limped king six suited, which is very common in
mhm.
these early stages, like you're just say
Sure,
you're
yeah,
your early position, you limp king six suited. You could limp any of the millions, lots of hands. There's not a million hands, but anyways, you limp one of these hands. The flop comes. We'll say I'm going to give you two different scenarios, Wes,
yep,
and tell me what your thoughts are on this. So the flop comes king 10 4. You have
mhm,
king six of spades in early position. It's a six-way limped pot.
yeah.
You're okay. We'll say you're in mid position. Under the gun had already limped you over limped. It comes king 10 4. You have king six. No backdoor flush. You just have a shitty top pair. Um, Under the gun ends up leading half pot. It doesn't matter big blind size in this scenario, but you end up calling, which is going to be standard. And
I would I would even say with 4 more players
maybe
behind,
just folding it.
maybe just folding because we already are sort of not beating any value,
I
right,
agree with you,
from the
but I
one
will say
player.
that no one is going to do that. So with
That's the
that
point of
being
us this episode, though, maybe we should,
Yeah,
like
no, I agree. But if we're doing that, maybe we should just raise pre-flop or fold pre-flop then. So let's
right.
get it back to like the initiation, right? So, um, yeah, but say that flop comes and and again, this is the issue. Yeah, you know what? Point solved. Point solved
Yeah.
already. Raise or fold pre-flop because you're going to find yourself calling two to three streets where you're just behind. And for example, even if it is a web board, like they can still have value hands that beat you. So I was going to give a couple scenarios there, but I guess we can get straight to where the true issue is, and that's pre-flop. I don't mind over limping, suited nutted type hands, but you
Mhm.
have to be prepared to make bigger folds on turns and stuff like that. I probably wouldn't fold the flop here personally, even though like we can be behind.
It's sort of it's not terrible. It depends on the situation, like, yeah, there are spot maybe if it's like, if there's a bet and a call already and still 3 more players behind, like, now you it's like, what are you hoping for?
Yeah. Yeah. What are
You're
you
hoping
hoping
it
for
just checks
exactly? You're just
down
hoping to have the best hand
or
instead
it's
of. Also, I want to mention I did, unknowingly or yeah, I it was a suited king that I.
it is a suited king.
Let's go.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I think I don't. What do you first off? What do you think about limping these kind of hands? Over limping these kind of hands?
I think over limping them is fine if you're deep, and if you're on the button or cutoff, or it's just a very passive table.
So it's okay for us to overlimp these kind of hands and then just get ready to fold top pair if we're five ways to a flop and we're not even close to last to act. I
Yeah.
agree with you because oftentimes again we're just hoping. I will say I'll ask what kind of flops are we hoping for? Then we're looking for second nut flush draw type flops, two pair plus flops. Then when we limp these type of hands.
Yeah, second nut flush draw, or we're looking to flop top pair and maybe have it check around and then
I mean, it could be
on
nut flush
blank
draw if say an ace of spades type board came out, but
for sure, yeah, for sure. we're looking for hands in multi-way spots. We're looking for hands that can beat all the hands, right? Um, and where we could cooler some other sort of hand. So flopping a weak top pair isn't really going to be. I mean, it's fine, but we can't be putting a lot of chips in. And I think that goes to a very similar point, which is there's going to be so many like multi-way pots early on, right?
Compared to later
So
in the tournaments, for sure.
yeah, so one of the biggest mistakes I see is people misplaying these multi-way spots pretty badly.
What is a good general rule of thumb for playing multi-way spots? And let me ask you if just being generally tighter would be a good answer to that.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Think of it this way, like if there is I'm gonna try and put it in the mathematical terms, and then we'll kind of explain it. Because I don't know the best way to actually phrase it, but if there is a let's say you're facing a bet and you're in a three-way pot. So someone bets and there's you and one other person to act. The amount of calls is theoretically speaking, let's say there's a heads up pot, someone bets, you're supposed to call a percentage of your range. Now, if there's 2 players, they're supposed to call that same percentage, but combined between the 2 of them. So you are you should be folding more of the hands that or you should be folding some of the hands that you would be calling with if the pot were heads up. So I guess the technical way to phrase it is like the minimum defense frequency stays the same overall in multi-way pots, but it's divided between the players. So your individual um requirement to call, so to speak,
Is
goes
that the
down.
minimum defense frequency?
Yep. Yeah, and so basically what that means is, you know, if you're in the big blind, for example, and you defend 9-8 offsuit, heads up if the flop is like queen 8-5, you're not folding to a bet. Now let's say you defend 5 ways, like under the gun opens and then there are 3 callers and you defend. Queen 8-5. Let's say even if now let's say it's not under the gun that bets because then maybe everyone else would act, but let's say it checks to the cutoff, they bet, and then you're next to act, but there's still 3 players behind.
Yeah.
Now your 8 should just go in the muck because
Yeah.
there's still 3 players here. Sure, they didn't bet, but the under the gun player could be trapping, could be pot controlling, like queen 10 suited. You know what I mean? There's so much more stuff that can make you just be behind right now. Plus the cutoff is going to be way less likely to stab with something like pocket deuces, right? To just try and take down the pot.
Yeah, I think a
Um,
good way to simplify that is the more players there are, the less equity you're going to have. So these middling hands we can just essentially toss so we don't end up burning money.
yeah, that's a great way to put it. The less equity you'll have.
So,
So
all right, cool. Hey, I said something smart again.
I'm
Hold
proud of
on,
you.
turn around to that chalkboard behind you. Mark another one. That's
All
3
right.
this week.
3. Oh,
Or
this
was it 3
week.
this year? Um, yeah, so I think that's a good one. All right, you know what? Another kind of topic I wanted to discuss that I think a lot of people are torching money early in tournaments is overplaying nut flush draws or flush draws in general.
Mm,
Not flush draws, but just flush draws in general. Even in multi-way or not in multi-way pot. I guess to me, we can discuss both of them. But what I mean is like oftentimes say there's 4 players in a pot and you have jack 8 of hearts. Say you defended jack 8 of hearts from the big
mhm.
blind and the flop comes um, we'll say it's king 7 deuce 2 hearts, king deuce of hearts 7x. um,
Yep.
I'll just start see people check raising, either donk leading like with their flush draws or check raising, trying to not afraid to just put their whole stack in with a basic ass flush draw when you're hundreds of big blinds deep. And I think oftentimes, whether and maybe you can correct me here, tell me your thoughts on this strategy, but I find that I play these kind of big draws, say nutted or unnutted draws. I play them a lot more passive earlier in tournaments compared to later in tournaments. Number one being is because I'm so deep that I don't want to end up getting it all in with 30%
Right.
equity.
if the chips go in,
If the chips
you're
go in, yeah, and
not
then
in good
yeah,
shape.
I don't think people truly understand how little equity they have when they have these draws, even if they're big draws.
Right, well, yeah, I would say especially if they're just the normal like, if we don't have the overcard to top pair, if we don't have a gut shot with
Yeah,
it, like
that's a great point to add too, is paying attention to your draws. So, like for example, if you have Queen 10 of hearts on say 3, 5, 7 with two hearts, well, now you're going to have a lot more equity than the prior example I gave because you have those six overcards of outs potentially as well to add to your equity, which would be almost 12% per street.
mhm, yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good point to make. Um, I would say actually 13.8 or 13.6, I think.
Well, I give rough estimates. You give exact
Yeah.
calculations because you're a fucking rat,
Yeah, I've just seen
a
it too much on,
mathematical
like
rat.
I've seen it too much in the sites online that show you your percentages.
Yeah, yeah.
It just the ace king versus jacks to the river is like, yeah,
So
13.6.
just
Anyways,
again, I'm a simplifier, Wes, and one way for me to simplify that and it's not always exact, but it's close enough to get me to the correct answer. Is I typically always
multiply by
calculate
4.
an out as 2%.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, yeah. I've definitely heard that method. Um, and, anyways, the point the point remains, yeah, if you have the overcards and whatnot, or you have a gut shot, the draws are stronger. But yeah, to your initial point, there are definitely spots where you see people putting in a lot of money with the draws, and it's situational, right? Like, I'm not saying don't check raise a flush draw, but we are let's say we get called, um, and I think you had said like king seven deuce as a board.
yeah.
And let's say we have the queen high flush draw here, we check raise and get called, and the turn is like an offsuit five. I think this is where your point really comes into play, where it's like, if you're gonna blast big here, you need to know you have the fold equity. Um, but also sometimes early in these tournaments, and I think we've talked about this before, is like exploitatively, you want to do the opposite of what other people are doing here. And if they're
Mhm.
being too loose, you want to kind
Be
of,
more passive
yeah, wait for your hand and then
and then blast.
be
Yeah.
more aggressive once you make a huge
Well
hand.
said. And another way to exact what I was thinking in my head while Wes was saying that is realize for example, yeah, exploit your opponents. If your opponents are sticky, be more passive. And what that means in terms of the gameplay in this specific spot is realize your equity before you start blasting. So wait till you hit your flush draw, then start blasting because they're sticky, and now you're going to exploit their stickiness by getting paid by betting bigger.
Mhm.
If they're a needy player or a tighter player, and this is why paying attention comes so handy is because now we can start check raising our draws and exploiting their tightness. I mean,
Mhm.
if they're gonna say it's a king high board and they have pocket jacks and they're gonna fold to a single check raise, like OMC often would, yeah, I think that's a great place to start check raising your flush draws even when you're deep. So pay attention to your opponent's tendencies, whether they're tight or loose, um, and then yeah, exploit those based on what you find. So
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's well said.
okay,
And
let's talk about another thing here, Wes.
mhm.
Um, so far we've covered playing, how to play draws super deep. What was the first one we talked about again? Um,
I mean, well, we had multi-way,
multi-way, yeah, like playing top
overplaying
pairs with
medium.
shitty
Yeah.
kickers, things like that. The third one I want to talk about is how to play massive pocket pairs when we're this deep.
Yeah.
And the first rule, or not a rule, I guess, but the first thing that comes to my mind is quit trapping when you're 100 to 200 big blinds deep. Um,
Yep, that's good.
okay. You were thinking there for a minute. I thought you were about to just shut me down, but I mean,
No, no, not at all. I mean, it's true. I don't know that I see a ton of people doing it comparatively to the other stuff, but yeah, you definitely no reason to trap these.
yeah.
Um,
First off, quit limping under the gun with aces. That was like 20 years ago. No one's
yeah,
falling for that shit anymore.
I
Secondly,
will say if you're there and I'm not I don't employ the limping strategy, but when you are short, that is actually a thing.
Yeah.
However, that's a story for another day.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. But yeah, I guess what are some like rule of thumbs we can kind of give to the listeners for playing big pocket pairs? Do you think that they're in the mid? Say we're playing in mid stakes to low stakes, so like MSPTs down to dailies, we'll say, or
Mhm.
dailies up to MSPTs. These fields are often filled with recreational players.
Yep.
Is What are your thoughts on not being balanced and just opening larger with premium hands?
Boy, that's a good question because that goes against so much we've talked about.
Right, right. But I
Yeah,
think I think there could be some merit to this, right? I think maybe I'm not saying doing it all the time, but
yeah.
I've found online like in like especially in like lower stakes tournaments, even in like the 99s and under, I'll sometimes just I like there's been times where like I've been dealt aces first hand of a tournament and I'll just send in 150 bigs. Just all in, just open
That
jam. And I'll
okay,
just get called because people are like, this guy's doing nothing. You know what I mean?
that's a good point, and so that I think that's a little different.
It
I
is a
would
little
say
different. You're right.
it is, but that is a good point where, like so here are a couple little strategies you could do, right? One and this goes for every new blind level. Let's say the blinds go up from 2-3 to 200 400 now, and you have like doesn't matter. You have like 80, 100 bigs, whatever. No one like sometimes you're going to be opening. You could have an open strategy of like opening to 900 1K, maybe 11, 12. Depending, let's say you get aces on that level and you haven't opened yet. Well, now you could decide to make your opens for that tournament
For that level,
one
you
of the
mean?
bigger ones. Yeah, for that level, a bigger one,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And then I guess rebalance on the next level so like there's not they can't exploit your sizings. Is that where you're getting at?
I mean, they're just not gonna know like, to be clear, I'm not saying just, like, randomly 5x, right? I mean, if you think it'll work, then good, but
Especially if you see people just like being extremely loose at your table.
yeah. No, yeah, for sure, and so the point is, like, do it in spots that are way harder to exploit. So I would also say 3-bet larger, punish the limpers with a even bigger raise, and this is not even just aces and stuff, but I think people tend to 3-bet too small or, like, especially out of position
Yeah.
or in multi-way
Let's
spots,
go
but
by
I
this piece
see
by piece.
yeah. So my train of thought here is, like, if we have let's say we face at big blind is 300, someone opens to 800, we have aces in position, don't go 2,200, go, like, 3,200,
Yeah.
you know?
Or maybe
People
even bigger.
yeah, right, and I think one exploit to make here and this is similar to what we were saying before, but, like, we people are too splashy early on, so they're not gonna fold your 3 bets as much. So, when you're 3 betting against players who are like that, wait for, you know, premium hands, 3 bet linear, you don't need to include the bluff hands, and just go bigger,
Yeah.
get chips in.
It's funny because it seems so basic and so exploitable, but it's again in these tournaments that
It
most of
is.
us are playing, there's just no one's on that level. I mean, not no one, but like most people aren't on that level thinking about that. A lot of the people are dialed into what their hand strength is, and that's what we're trying to take advantage of here.
Yeah, and this doesn't necessarily apply to online if you're playing in a pool of players, like, if we play in these small field tournaments online, you're gonna play against the same players so much that they might pick up on it eventually,
Yeah,
but definitely, like and maybe not, but people just won't have enough of a sample size against you, I think, to pick up on a lot of this stuff. Some of the sharp players will,
Yep.
but you'll figure out who those are, and you
And then
don't,
you can
you know,
avoid those
you play.
spots against them. Yeah.
Yeah, you just play closer to what you think a sound strategy is against those players.
I like it.
So,
I like it.
and the other thought there was if there are like 4 limpers, let's say big blind is 300 and you're in position, like go 2,500, you know?
Okay, let's
Right.
hang on this for a minute. So you got 4 limpers from EP all the way up to late position, so early position all the way to late position. You're in the cutoff with pocket jacks and 150 big blinds. It's the 200 blind level, so it's 200, 200, 200, 200. Let's
We
see.
got
So
30K.
yeah, 30K. No, yeah,
It's in
exactly.
our stack
I
is
thought you were saying
30K,
that was
yeah.
what we should bet.
I mean,
Uh,
that makes sure they don't hit the ace, right?
just squeeze jam. Again, I have done that with like aces just to get called by just some like people will just be like toss it in with king queen and be,
Yeah.
anyways, without getting too crazy here. Yeah, so let's say there's 4 limpers. You're in cutoff with pocket jacks. You have 150 bigs at the 200 big blind level. So there's what 2, 4, 6, 8. There's what
Plus, so
1,500.
1,300.
Yeah, 1,300 in the pot. What are we gonna make it here over 4 limpers with pocket jacks and cutoff?
I probably 10x it,
Yeah,
2K.
just like make it 2K. I
Yeah.
like it. You know what? You might get folds, which is fine because now you're picking up all that dead money. But secondly, you might just you're isolating the pot into a heads up, which does a couple of things. It gets you heads up in position against one of those other players, but it also increases your equity compared to a multi-way pot.
Yeah, it increases, and even if a few people call, like, your jacks are y your EV from the hand is so good, it's just you're gonna lose it more, but when you win, you're gonna win
Yeah.
a big pot.
You're gonna win a bigger pot. And secondly, keep in mind that it's okay after making this huge raise pre-flop to fold post flop on boards that aren't favoring you. Like, don't get married to your hand, as we've said in previous episodes. It's okay if the flop comes king queen four and and it checks to you. You can just check this. I mean, if it's like say 4 ways, you can check this back. If it's heads up, you can just I think what mixing, checking, and betting is probably okay.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I think,
but
that's a good way to say it. So
Yeah, so I think it's okay to just fold. And then if you get called, say it's heads up, only one person called, and it comes king queen four, they check, you bet, we'll say third pot or half pot, whatever, third pot, and they call. At this point, you might want to just start shutting down shop. And if they show aggression after that point, it's okay to just let it go. Like
Mhm.
you just don't need to burn money in that spot because yeah. If
Yeah.
first off, you with pocket jacks here, you heavily block jack 10, which would be some of their bluffs. But
Mhm.
anyways, just thoughts to keep in mind. It's and if it's say, well, another example is say you have pocket jacks here, but two of the 4 limpers called you, so there's 3 ways, and the flop comes just one over. Say it's queen 4 deuce. Um, I'm probably just going to try and get my jacks to showdown here without voluntarily betting.
Mhm.
So, yeah, and just keep in
I
mind that
I was reminded this is such a weird hand to remember, and I don't remember every detail, but this is what happened. It was, like, one of the first hands of a tournament, and it was back when there were normal antes and we had the 25 chips too, right?
I miss those days a little bit.
Yeah, so I remember I was at running aces. It was, like, starting stack was probably 20 or 25K. Blinds were 25, 50, and there were probably 3 limpers, maybe 4 including the small
Wait,
blind,
the
and I was in
stacks
the
were that big at when it was 50, 25, 50?
yeah, I think it started with 400 bigs. I think we had 25K,
Sheesh.
or
Okay.
sorry, 20K.
Yeah, 20K.
And I look down at ace king of diamonds in the big blind, and I make it 450, so I make it 9x,
Yep.
and I get 2 or 3 people just quickly call, and this was probably 7 years ago, and I was not nearly as well studied as I am now,
Yeah.
but I just remember thinking, "What the hell are these guys doing?
You know what's
Like, don't
funny
they
though?
know how
You,
bad that
you,
is?"
you well, they
And I
don't.
lost the pot, but
You know what they're thinking though is they're not thinking that this is a 9 big blind open. They're thinking this 450 is 5% of my stack, so I can afford to lose this. by just
Right,
calling and
yeah.
trying to hit, which is a terrible
Yeah, like
mindset,
2%, yeah.
or 2%, yeah. But yeah, so yeah, I guess that my point is like th
Right, people that is a good point, though, that people and when we say that, more so recreationals, but they will look at their stack based on chips and not big blinds.
yeah, and I think, and this goes aligns perfectly with what we were saying earlier, is this is why we can just way size up on my pocket aces pre-flop because of that thought. We're exploiting that thought process by them. Um,
Mhm,
yeah, and then you know, by the turn, say they flop a pair, by the turn, all of a sudden they have half their stacking and they feel committed to call the rest of it off with just something mediocre. So you just see this kind
mhm,
of all the time. And I think it's a great way to exploit early tournament and try to build a stack for late registration, or when late registration ends, rather.
yeah. I think this also applies to, like, post flop. We raise pre-flop. We don't always need to down bet, even if it's a board, like, let's say king deuce deuce, like, oh, quote unquote,
Supposed to
we're
bet small.
supposed to see bet like 20,
Yeah,
25% here.
yeah,
Let's say we have king queen on king deuce deuce. Like, do we really need to down bet or can we just say, hey, I don't think this player's gonna float us that much, but like, let's just start barreling big and hope he has a king,
yeah.
right?
Because now we're just going to get the maximum from all kings. We might lose some of the floats, but that's okay. Like again, this is player dependent type stuff.
Yeah, like let's bloat the pot up early because we know they're folding no kings on flop.
Yeah,
So
and we
let's
have
get a
all
lot
of
in
them beat,
early.
specifically, unless it's ace king, but we'd probably hear from that pre-flop. So,
Mhm.
and be
Okay.
careful though, because OMC might show up with ace king.
Ace
He
king.
might have
Oh,
limp
oh,
called
yeah.
with ace king. So
Yeah.
be
Oh, we've
be
seen
careful.
it.
Be careful for that guy. Oh
He'll
man,
lead at
there's
some
so many
point.
times I've absolutely owned myself by
Just thinking they can't have ace king.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Uh, but they do, those tricky fuckers. Excuse
They
my
find a
language.
way.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so we've talked about big pairs. We've talked about being cautious with top pairs. We've talked about not overplaying draws in early stage tournaments. What other kind of topics are there that we think people would be torching money in these early stage tournaments?
Um, yeah, it all goes down sort of to the looseness, and I would say bet size. Even one thing I would say is even those players out there who are a little more studied, a little more theoretically sound, I see some three bet sizings that are just too small. Like I think people don't realize, let's say there's a low jack open. Um, Standard three bet in position here off of 100 big blinds effective is going to be to eight big blinds, right?
Okay. Okay.
Standard three bet out of position is going to be 11, 11 and a half, 12
Keep in
to
mind
like
this is when
5x.
we're extremely deep, and these numbers will reduce as we get more shallow.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I'll see people like three bet to three and a half bigs out of position or go like two and a half in position. It's like, what's the goal? What's trying to be accomplished here? Like, it's not really going to work too well.
No, no,
So
I don't think so.
yeah, that's something
Yeah.
I would
And
say.
you touched a good point. Something that a lot of people need to be aware of is in position um, should not be as large as out of position. And
Mhm.
that's just because, um, sorry, I got a message there I lost my train of thought. Where was that? Oh yeah, our sizes out of position should be increased, and the reason we do that is because we're out of position. Let me ask you, I guess, Wes, what are we raising bigger out of position to say if the pots, if there's only one single opener, we're not doing it to isolate. Are we just doing it to not give them better odds to play in position pot against us?
Yeah, our playing out of position, we will realize our equity less than if we're in position. And so we're incentivized to one, get our opponent to fold, or to have a lower SPR because then it's easier to play our hands from out of
Okay.
position. It
Yeah.
gives them less leverage.
I like that. Yeah, we're going to realize less equity when we're out of position, meaning we're going to, and essentially when we say realizing equity, that means catching our pairs, hitting our flushes, like making our hands essentially is realizing our equity. And we're going to be able to do that less often because our opponents are going to be able to bet us out of pots, out of being able to see turns and rivers, etc. Because
Y-
we'll check to them more frequently and then they'll bet and we'll have to fold. So
Yeah, that's correct. Like the percentages you see by if you're watching TV, you'll see the percentages by players' hands. Well, yeah, you might have decent equity with 10-8 suited on like Jack 6-4 rainbow if you're against King Queen. But if you're out of position and you just called a raise pre, you're gonna check fold, right?
you want to know something I thought would I just had this thought and it would be super cool. And I bet you AI could probably implement this with the new technology that we have. But when watching streams, if AI could take the tendencies of players based on like their VPIP and stuff like that, and then put a second equity calculator there. So you have their actual hand equity. So like a
Oh,
flip, it's
wow.
ace, you know what I'm saying? But then have a second equity that shows their actual chances of winning it based on their position, based on their aggression factor. Like
Oh,
this guy's
man.
gonna win this pot probably 90% of the time, even though he has the worst hand because he has position and because of how frequently he's putting chips in the middle. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
that would be interesting.
I think that'd be kind of cool. Maybe I'm an idiot. Who knows? Um,
That would be complicated, but yeah, no, I that would be that is the idea though, right? Because sometimes it's like you do wanna try and think with your actual hand, you wanna try and figure out what its equity is now, but you also know it's like, okay, if we call a 3 bet with sevens out of position here,
I'm gonna fold so many flops.
yeah, I'm going to fold some flops, I'm going to
So
fold
while
some
our
turns.
and while our
Yeah,
opponent might have ace king and we're 50-50, my true equity of this is going to be like we'll say 8% because I'm just going to be folding to so many c bets.
I think it'll be higher than
I,
8,
I
but
I
I
just threw
get your
out some
point, yeah,
arbitrary number, but
yeah.
that's the thought. Like my equity might be 50, but my chances of actually winning the hand are significantly lower because I'm out of position and I don't have the
Mhm.
betting the how do we want to word that? The betting power, the betting we don't have
The
position, the
betting
betting
lead?
position.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, I think I thought that could be a cool idea.
Mhm.
I
That
gen
that would be cool.
I'm genuinely curious how AI is going to, and this is here we go tangents already, but how AI is going to affect the game in real time between either online or live. Like, I mean, obviously we saw how solvers affected the game. I'm curious how, I mean, whether it be cheating or tools being used or what it is, but I don't know. Maybe that's a tangent for another day when that technology becomes even more powerful.
Well, I think so. We have a different topic here. Do you have anything else on the early stages you wanna talk about?
I think those were some great points. Obviously, one thing I've noticed is a lot of our listeners love early stage topics, and there's so much to talk about when it comes to early
Our
stages.
you get okay, we'll just say you guys wouldn't believe how popular our early stage tournament episodes are.
Yeah.
Like, 2 of our top 4 plus our best episode overall is at just this early stage, and we're like, "Interesting." Is this
And
because
yeah.
we don't talk about it enough, or is it because you guys just aren't making it to the late stages?
Oh, here we go. Yeah, needle our audience. I love that.
Yeah.
No, I think what I think it is a lot of people listen to us on their way to play poker. So they're kind of using it as a way to get set into a mindset for what's going to be next for them.
Mm. Yep.
And that
I
seems
like
to
that.
make the most sense. I know I've
That
listened to a
that
lot of
actually makes a lot of sense, yeah.
yeah, they're like, I'm about to go enter into this tournament. It's the early stage, and I want to be prepared. So, I know that's what I've done on road trips on my way to play poker. So that's my thought. But yeah, early stage tournaments, you guys love that content, so we'll keep making it. Like that's clear. And there's infinite things we can talk about in deep stack play. So, um, let's recap quickly our bullet points from that, and then we'll move on to the second part of this episode. But the first one is don't get married to top pairs when you're hundreds of big blinds deep, specifically if your kicker's shitty and the board isn't great.
Mhm.
You're going to end up torching a ton of money that way. Secondly, playing draws, whether it's a straight draw, a flush draw, a combination draw. If you're playing against loose opponents, It's probably better to be a little bit more passive and start calling instead of check raising or betting with those hands, just because you want to realize your equity and then start exploiting their loose tendencies by getting the max in after you have that. If they're tighter, you can then exploit that by starting to check raise your draws. That's that one. Thirdly, big pocket pairs pre-flop. Don't be afraid to just size it up, even if it's unbalanced, as they say. A lot of these people, and especially to our listeners in the pools they play in, these most people aren't going to be paying attention to that. They're paying attention only to their hand strength. They might, they're like, oh, he sized up, and they might think you have aces. But then if they catch top pair, they'll talk themselves into still calling it down. It doesn't matter. Uh,
You're not wrong there.
it's true. And then be mindful of people who are paying attention and don't do it against them. So this is where skill comes into play and repetition. Find yourself in these spots, do it over and over again. And then did we do another one after that?
I think so.
Yeah, well, you guys already listened to it, so
You guys already listened. It's
and
still
then
there for you. You can rewind.
so on the opposite side of playing this super deep, what is this where we're getting with this, Wes?
Yeah, let's talk about some max late reg strategy. And I do a decent amount of it, or at least late reg in general. There was an article I
More so
read,
online.
yeah, more so online, but some live.
Yeah.
There was an article online um, about the math behind max late regging, and it's actually pretty eye opening. Not, it's consistent with kind of what I've known, but I think it's important to share because I think, especially for someone who's a recreational, it can seem so unappealing. Like, oh God, I would never just buy in with 10 big blinds. Like that's just you're torching. And not only is it not true, but it could even be the opposite in a way. Um, which is kind of funny to think. I think it's easy to say, "Oh, yeah, you're just gonna bust the tournament in one hand so often." Like that's just such a terrible strategy, and that and this is purely from a profitability standpoint, right? We're not talking about the enjoyment of the experience here, but
That's exactly right. A lot of people have entertainment factor that they want to get out of their buy-in. They want to play poker for a ton of hours to feel like they got something out of their buy-in. This is probably geared more towards people who are doing it for a living, trying to
yeah,
maximize their hourly, etc.
yeah. So here's a list of just general benefits. One is you minimize the amount of entries. You can just it's decent bankroll management in a way.
It's
You
probably
minimize,
I'll say that's my number one reason for max layer edging
yeah, right.
is it saves me money.
You minimize the amount of hours it takes to complete a tournament. You boost the overall ROI with immediate increase of the value to your starting stack. And that's one we'll get into in a bit because I think that's the biggest thing to note. You increase assuming you're a winning player, you increase your hourly win rate by playing more tournaments in a session. So that would maybe refer to online more. But even in live, you are and this is the next point. You reach final tables more quickly and thus earlier in a session when you have greater energy and focus. So like you are saving yourself all the energy of playing those early
That's a
levels.
huge one for me. As I get older, I notice that saving because for example in MSPT I get there firsthand. Registration's what 8 hours long, 9 hours, something
Yep,
like that.
8.5, yeah.
Uh, I can be exhausted easily by the end of that. I
Yeah,
might have a pile of chips at that point, but that does leave me prone to potential mistakes at the crucial, pre-bubble stages entering, the end of the day. I have made mistakes due to being fatigued for sure. So
yeah. And I think the best and yeah, you feel like if you've played since level 1 and let's say you build it up to 2.5 starting stacks and you're at the end of the late reg, like that's good, but it also can lead to this feeling of feeling so attached to the tournament and it might make you play worse in a way. Like you've already invested all that time, you know?
yeah,
You
yeah,
might not be as aggressive. And
yeah.
so
You know that feeling when you reg super, you reg on time and then late registration comes and you still have a starting stack and how that feels.
yeah. Oh, been there too. And I would say like
Or under
another
a
thing,
starting stack even.
right. And I think people think like, oh, if I register early, I want to build up a big stack. And it's like, of course that'll certainly happen sometimes, but you also have to be aware of the possibility that like if you take all of your tournaments into account, there's a lot of bullets, a lot of buy-ins you make where you will have busted already. So I would add to the benefit of this is by max late regging, you guarantee that you're in the tournament with that many, whether it's a third of the field left or whatever.
Yep.
Obviously, the downside is you're going to have a well below average stack at the time.
Yeah, and but for me personally, I literally never like I'll look at the average stack, but I've never one time let that affect my play. Like I never think that you never have to worry about the average stack. It's cool to look at, but
Yeah.
never implement that in your strategy to try and get to
Mhm.
that, to try and get over that, to staying over that. You will only hurt yourself doing that. Yeah, leave that behind.
It does mess with you, yeah. So here's some numbers, here's some math, and this is,
I
so
hate math.
let's exclude the rake here. Um, so let's say the entry fee in a and these numbers are more for online, but easy to convert into live tournaments. So if you're in a $10 satellite, so $10 is what goes into the prize pool with 120 entries, 29 remaining, about a quarter of the field, 11 places paid, da da da. Your late reg stack value is over $15 if this is a satellite. So in satellite specifically, max late regging is so huge
It's profitable.
because yeah,
Just by
because
registering, you've made money, essentially.
exactly, exactly. And satellite specifically, it's like you don't even need to win the tournament, right? Because the min cash pays the same
It's
as
about
first
surviving.
place. Yeah, and so and this is one of the things with max late regging is you're more likely to cash and you're going to make more money overall, but you're a little less likely to win the tournament. But in a satellite, that downside doesn't even matter, right? So satellites you are probably torching by going in the tournament early, if anything.
Okay.
Um, regular tournaments, it's still like a 15 or okay, we'll use the $15 one here. If there's about a third of the field remaining, $16.76 is your value when you register. So just by max late regging, you are your stack is worth more money in a
60%
regular
more.
tournament. Oh, no, 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 like 10%. That's a $15 buy-in,
Oh,
sorry. That's
$15
just the
buy-in.
example they have here.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and a good rule of thumb
I
is
was like, wait a second, am I doing this wrong?
right, yeah. The, uh, the 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 main point here is the less of the field that is remaining, the more valuable your stack becomes when you max late reg. And this is because, like, if you're in a tournament and you just fold a hand, but then every time someone busts at another table, the dollar value of your stack slightly goes up. Like you are making money, even if not really, but you're making expected value when people bust out of a tournament. And on the flip side, every time someone new registered, your value goes down
Yep.
because they get a disproportionate amount of it, right?
Yep.
The only exception to this, and they give the example of a PKO, a progressive bounty, but I would just say any bounty tournament, like bounties and PKOs specifically, mystery bounties are a little bit different because the bounties aren't available yet, right? Because if you late reg a mystery bounty, there's not money out of the prize pool yet, but you are in a mystery bounty, you still want to build a big stack. So I think a mystery bounty, it would still not be advisable to just always max late reg because you, when you max late reg, you're less likely to be covering other players when the time
Which is where
comes.
a lot of the value is in those specific tournaments.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So overall, I mean, I'm not saying that, you know, I'm not saying people should just like always not register on time, but I do think there is a lot to be said about the fact that in terms of your profitability, if you're a for-profit player, you're not only will you save a lot of time from the early stages, but you will be able to have a more valuable stack when you register by buying in late. Of course, you'll have a more valuable stack if you play early and build it up, but it's about if those hours are worth it for you. Like, if you are a for-profit player, yes, the early stages will make your stack more valuable, but it's about, is it worth it'll probably lower your hourly win rate, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think, and I want to mention to listeners that Wes and I, both of us, do both. We late reg
Yeah.
and we register on time, and we just do what seems best for us for that tournament in that day. Whether there's outside influences, for example, work or prior obligations for lunch, for example, with a friend or something like that. But more towards poker, we do depends. For example, like online, a lot of these dailies, I will max late reg because I get in with 20 bigs. It saves my hourly a ton, and I can play 20 bigs like like a G. So,
Mhm.
and then there's live tournaments where specifically mystery bounties, yes, get there early because we want to build a big stack. But for MSPTs and stuff like that, I do a mixture. I prefer actually for like MSPTs, I do prefer getting in earlier just because again that main premise, that main thought of more fish in the lake at that point of the day. That might not be true for everyone. I know some of the best players max late reg, and I'm guilty of it too occasionally. But I'd rather reg maybe an hour or two before max late reg, where I have 20 bigs compared to 7.5 bigs, just to reduce variance a little bit.
Sure, yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah,
but
and,
be
like, give
fluid.
yourself a little playability in a sense.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and then like I said, there's entertainment value players out there who expect they want to play poker. I mean, they don't do it for a living. They expect to profit, right? We all want to profit, but they want to get in the mix, have some of the social aspects, leave the day thinking, oh, I had some good conversation. I got some cool three bets in. If you're that type of player, yeah, don't be afraid to register on time for all of it, honestly, because yeah, that's more fit towards your style. But for the person who's simply trying to make a living off it, I'd say that overall max lay regime is probably going to be the most beneficial. Does that seem fair?
It does seem fair, especially either online or live in a setting where there's cash games or other tournaments you can play,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, I think if we're traveling for one specific tournament, it
Oh
can
yeah,
be sort of a "what else are you gonna do" type
great
thing.
great point. Yeah, yeah. That's a great point. I think MSPTs are starting to have a lot more um, series along with their main events, which is great because now there's going to be
Yeah.
more events to play. They got these. I saw they're giving away. By the way, they got these like this new system where they give out gold plated cards or something. Did you see that?
Yeah, for the side events.
And for the main event, for any event that's an MSPT, and the
Wait,
goal
are
is
they not doing the main trophies for
there
the main
is a
event?
main trophy. It's not. It looks different now. That
Okay.
congrats to Mike Estes. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. I
Yeah.
played with him a bunch. He won MSPT Riverside for 150 or something like that, 150 stacks,
Yeah.
racks, G's, whatever.
Yeah. Dollars, some would say.
Oh, dollars. Yeah, but yeah, that's boring. Anyways, yeah. So I saw he got two trophies. He got the card and he got an actual trophy. But back to the cards. Apparently, like the first event you win the ace of spades. And then the second
Uh-huh.
event you win the king of spades. And then apparently you're supposed to try and go through I don't know, good luck winning 52 events, but to get it the
I
whole.
see where it's going, though.
But that's kind of, I think I like it because, um, yeah, it's something more for people to fight for to build their credibility as a tournament player. It's kind of like comparative to circuit rings, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, that's fair. That's a good
Yeah.
way to put it.
Yeah. Any last thoughts on late regging before we wrap up here?
Um, no, I mean, that was the general premise, like, just wanted to share what I was reading, and yeah, it's I'm not even saying it's good for the game, you know?
Personally, it's really not, in my
It's
opinion.
it's annoying, like, if you're already in the tournament and, you get a bunch of these pros max late regging, it is kind of annoying.
Have you seen yeah, for sure. Have you seen like the high rollers are a great example. Like no one like
Yeah.
all of us yeah, it'll have like 12 entries and then at the last minute like 40 will like the most of the field will come in at the last second. It's like wow.
Yeah, it's sort of, a play to and, like, if everyone does it, then it defeats the purpose too. But
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
yeah, it's too bad in that sense because it takes away from the whole playability. There should be some sort of I get tournaments wanting to allow people to register as long as possible, but I think it would be best for the game if there was like not that you have to be in at level 1, hand 1, but it would be interesting to see some tournaments that just didn't allow the deep late registration.
I wouldn't be surprised if things get I mean, the issue, I guess maybe I should retract before I even say this, is that I think I would love to see that, but for bottom lines for casinos, it probably does not help, so we
Yeah,
probably won't see it.
yeah. No, of course.
Which is kind of unfortunate, but it is what it is. And I guess one we'll wrap that up. So yeah, we discussed early tournament, ways you're torching money and ways to not torch the money, and then late registering and how that can be good for you or bad for you depending on what you're trying to get out of the whole thing. I just want to ask everyone who's listening to this and has made it to this point in the episode, take a second and look through the description that we provide wherever you're listening to this. You'll see a bunch of awesome links in there, whether you want to get some Suited Kings merch, whether you want to join Clubs Poker to help support the podcast. We have our Patreon that is a ton of content now coming back out after the summer, the long summer grind. We kind of slowed down. We're back. Patreon content is dropping, so make sure to check that out. But in the
Mhm.
description, we have all these links and these things. It's a great way to support us. So make sure to check those out. And we'd greatly appreciate that. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week. We actually have a guest on next week. Looking forward to chatting with him. I'll leave that a secret for now, but we're going to get some great poker stories. So look forward to that. And yeah, Wes, hope you have a great day, brother. Hope the grind goes well. I know I know the stream didn't go well last night. We won't touch that too hard, but
Yeah. It's
to say
alright.
the least, you got salamied quite a bit.
I did.
All right, guys, have a great rest of your day, Wes. You too, and we'll see you guys with another episode.